how to protect your investments during a crash. Now, this is going to be a little bit of a video about later in this bull cycle. Namely, I am expecting two crashes, okay, based on previous data, okay, based on 2017 and 2021, especially because back in 2021, there was a basically a midterm crash during the mid cycle that happened about May 2021. Okay. And of course, that end of bull cycle crash, which was significant because it took Bitcoin all the way down to about under 20,000. Okay, which was scary if you guys been around for that. I'm gonna be talking about how I will protect my investments during this crash, and of course, that is gonna be mainly with taking profits and keeping track of one of the main indicators I use, which is the relative strength index, the RSI, on the monthly time frame to get a gauge of when the peak is coming, and that is when I'll be scaling out of the markets. Now, we are also going to be talking about a couple of altcoins in this video as well, which will include Tars AI, which is the TAI token, DIA, DIA, as well as ANKR, and see what's going on in these markets and the trading setups as well as price targets if anything has changed. Of course, we're going to be talking about Bitcoin first because it is still the driver of this market. If it dumps like we're seeing today, that is not going to be good for the altcoins. I mentioned that after Bitcoin kicks off the bull cycle, which it did in my opinion, that these Bitcoin pullbacks are going to have less of an effect sometimes, okay? Because when Bitcoin dominance pulls back, then you can expect some of these Bitcoin pullbacks to have less, if an effect at all, on the altcoins. But that is not the case today. Okay, we're seeing Bitcoin down 2%. Bitcoin dominance actually bouncing back. Ethereum total 3 down way more than altcoins. Bitcoin. Okay, so what could be happening with Bitcoin here is going to be very important. Okay, let's point out a few signals later in this video, but we're going to go over some news here real quick on some crypto news. All right, this is by Cointelegraph. Bitcoin grabs bid liquidity as Bitcoin price dip targets include 113K. Yes, 130K is in the cards, but I do think we have quite a bit of way to get there, even though we're at what 117, 118 right now. I'll point out to you guys in the charts on why I think we have quite a bit of bounces along the way before getting there. But 113K is in the cards. Okay, I mean, I think it has a lower probability, but I think it's in the cards. Let's go to the next piece here is by Crypto News. The Genius Act stimulates the crypto markets. And IOTA miner free cloud mining sparks discussion. Okay, so I'm if you guys have any insights about the Genius Act, which is basically the law that was passed last week, and Trump signed into law. If you guys have any other insights about it, make sure to put it in the comment section below. I did watch a few news pieces about it. That you know, you know, that I don't actually remember honestly, but I do think that my impression was it was very bullish for the crypto markets as we have more structure in terms of regulation around the crypto markets. But honestly, I can't really talk too much into details about that because I have actually forgot. Now, let's go ahead and go to the next piece here. Okay, this is by Crypto Potato. Analysts low Bitcoin flow to exchanges point to high market confidence. If that is the case, then I do think that is pointing to high market confidence because, generally speaking, I think if there's low Bitcoin flow to exchanges, I think there's probably going to be less selling that's expected to go on, because that's where Bitcoin gets sold. It's on the exchanges. But when there's less Bitcoin on the exchanges, that's probably indicative of less selling expected to happen, which is good for altcoins and Bitcoin. All right, next piece here is going to be by Crypto News. BNB hits new all-time highs at $800. As alt season index holds above 50, is alt season finally here? Now, I've been saying that alt season has been here since Bitcoin started its bull cycle, breaking above the all-time highs at 110K. I have not checked the price of BNB, but I did do a video of BNB. If it actually hits 800, I think that's very bullish for BNB, but also have to consider the setup that it's in right now. Last time I looked, it was still inside a rising wedge, which is a bearish pattern. You guys let me know where that is right now. But I've been saying that all season is here since Bitcoin broke above its all-time highs, and Total 3 also broke out of a cup and handle pattern on the daily time frame, and it's been running since. I mean, we're experiencing a little bit of a pullback today, but I've seen this before in 2021. It's not uncommon, okay? But as long as you have higher highs and higher lows on Bitcoin, I think that is still indicative of a bull market here and alt season. All right, next piece here, it's by News BTC. Bitcoin 250,000, Ether 10,000 by year end. Arthur Hayes thinks so. Yes, I do think that is still possible, and it's not like I just jumped on the bandwagon recently. I've been telling you guys for weeks and weeks that I am bullish on Bitcoin and the rest of the crypto markets until at least the end of this year. I'll let you guys know if my opinion changes, but these are my opinions, right? And speculations, not financial advice. And I am long on quite a bit of the coins here. I am long on Bitcoin, quite a bit of altcoins. So my opinion on this market is still very bullish, okay? But you got to do your own research. Now, I also have pointed out why I think $250,000 is very much within the cards, and Ethereum is going to follow Bitcoin. And I mean, that's just like a 2x for Ethereum? I mean, yeah, I think that's very possible. All right, let's come back here to the charts here, and I gotta point out a few things for Bitcoin because it is still the driver of this market. Even though during the bull cycle, a lot of the altcoins could flip um grain, even though when Bitcoin dips, okay, that is not uncommon to see during a bull cycle. But I still keep in mind the Bitcoin charts before trading any altcoins. So let's take a look into the monthly time frame real quick because we have the monthly kind of coming to a close soon. Now there is still bearish divergence on the monthly RSI, but I am keeping track of this as well because there has been exceptions, namely back in 2017, okay, October 2017, when there was a big breakout invalidating that bearish divergence, or it kept pushing through, as well as December 2020. So both of those are huge breakouts with bearish divergence on the monthly time frame. Will this be something that will follow the previous two cycles, right? I mean, could be, but also have to consider the downside risk because monthly time frame, I mean, bearish divergence could still usually mean that there's going to be a pullback. Okay, so just got to gauge the probabilities of, if it continues going or would there be a pullback, right? Also, let's take a look into a smaller time frame here, daily time frame. There's quite a bit of bearish divergence here as well, as we're comparing a higher or equal high since yesterday's daily candle close, okay, with the previous high here. So we do have bearish divergence here. Now, it is very important for Bitcoin to break above this upper trend line. Otherwise, it could form a falling wedge pattern, and that could give way to a dip target of 113K possibly. Okay, so let's just say Bitcoin does not break above this upper trend line, then we could possibly be looking at a falling wedge pattern for Bitcoin. Okay. And I mean, you could just kind of estimate it with the bottom trend line here. I like to estimate it with a moving average that tells me more confidence that it's going to be a bounce and validate that bottom trend line. Okay, so 113K could be in the cards, like I said, if especially if Bitcoin doesn't break above this upper trend line here, especially with now bearish divergence on that daily time frame. Now, I did mention that there are some things, quite a bit of bounces along the way that could that Bitcoin could, avoid this dip with to 113K. Now, namely on this hourly time frame, there is still there's still a bullish divergence scenario. Even if Bitcoin comes back down to retest about 117 ish, right? If you guys can see, that was a pretty strong bounce. So that is something at least bullish on a smaller time frame, but just keeping in mind of what I'm seeing as some bearish signals as well. Let's take a look into Tars AI. See what's going on in this market since the last time we've talked about it, okay? Since the last time we've talked about it, I talked about a falling wedge pattern. Okay, a falling wedge pattern, which is usually bullish. And this falling wedge pattern, it was validated on the 3-day time frame. Broke out of it. Okay, the breakout still valid because it's still above that upper trend line here, where the price action is. Price target for this breakout would be about 13 cents. That is still a valid price target. Now, price targets are estimates only. There could be more, there could be less. In my opinion, very much depends on what happens with Bitcoin. Okay, if Bitcoin continues dipping, that may not be good for the altcoins, especially if Bitcoin dominance actually surges. Okay. So this is basically what I'm seeing now. There is a possible double bottom scenario, right, on this 3-day time frame as well, as you guys can see, which is about 7.8 cents. We have about 7 more hours until this 3-day candle closes, and let's see if you get bullish divergence on this 3-day time frame. Okay. Now, just because Tars AI broke out of this pattern, it does not mean that it's gonna 100% go to that price target. Okay. I've seen many scenarios where a breakout happens and the price action flops, right, and just continues dumping. So also got to consider the downside of breakouts as well, or fake outs. Okay. So this is basically what I'm seeing for Tars AI. Let's take a look into some resistances that Tars AI is facing right now, which would include the daily 21 SMA. Moving averages are very important for you guys to know, because when it's above the price action, it is resistance. When it's below the price action, it is support. And traders, myself included, will think of these zones as possible profit taking zones if I see resistance, or zones where I would open positions if we're at a support. If we're just talking about longs here, right? So Tars AI have been trying to get above this blue line here, which is the daily 21 SMA. If it gets above that, the daily 50 SMA is going to be at about 9 cents. Okay, that's just on this daily time frame. Let's take a look into the next coin, which is DIA, which has been on fire lately. We're going to be talking about, let's see if this coin would be pulling back, quite a bit, okay? Because it basically went up from, it basically 2x. I mean, that's not like crazy, because I've seen 2x's in the altcoin markets, especially smaller altcoin markets, and it dumps afterwards, okay? So let's see what's going on with DIA here, okay? Weekly time frame. Now, falling wedge pattern, DIA broke out of this falling wedge pattern on this weekly time frame, which is huge. It's, like I said, it's the most common pattern that you guys should be paying attention to and learning how to chart, because it's very simple and effective. Usually tells you after a extensive downtrend, the price is likely to break out to the upside. Price target was about $1. Dia went all the way up to about $1.25 almost. Okay, now it's pulling back. Let's see what's happening on this 4-hour time frame. 4-hour time frame. Falling wedge pattern. Okay, it is on the 4-hour 21 SMA. Now, falling wedge patterns usually break to the upside, but I do, I do also pay attention to what's happening on a higher time frame as well, because the higher time frame trumps the lower time frames, right? If I see bearish signals in a higher time frame and I see bullish signals on a lower time frame, I'm going to give more weight and consideration to the higher time frame. And on the higher time frame, it has been pretty overbought. If you ever, just look at the daily time frame. Overbought. 12-hour time frame. These time frames are above the 4-hour time frame, so I'm going to give that more weight than the 4-hour time frame here. Okay, so that's basically what I'm seeing for Dia. Let's see if this falling wedge pattern stays intact, right? If it does, then the price target could be, let's see here, if it breaks out by this point here, then we have a rebound to possibly about $1.25. However, like I said, seems to be pretty overbought on the higher time frame, so also have to consider the downside risk as well, which I think this could probably, it could probably dip further. Just my personal opinion. If Dia actually rebounds here, and I'm talking about the higher time frame on this weekly time frame here, if it actually comes back up to retest about $1.35, then it could form a cup and handle here. But that's hypothetical. It hasn't done that yet. But if it does, we can come back and talk about more Dia. Let's take a look into ANKR next, where I talked about a falling wedge pattern on this weekly time frame, which is a huge pattern. Price target, if it breaks out to the upside, would be about 10 cents, a little above 10 cents. It's very close to the bottom of that pattern here, and I talked about a falling wedge pattern that's within this bigger one, right? That broke out. Price target was about 1.9 cents. Okay, basically hit that target. Now it is retracing. I talked about this rising wedge pattern as well, which usually breaks to the downside, and it did. Okay, so breakdown target for ANKR here is going to be about 1.7 cents price target, breakdown target for this rising wedge. Okay, why are these important to pay attention to? Because they could present dip buying opportunities when when it's in a bull cycle. Okay, so would ANKR go all the way down? It's already pretty much there. There's quite a bit of moving averages, including the daily 21 SMA at about 1.6 cents as support. Now, this basically wraps it up for this video for ANKR, Dia, TAI, and as well as Bitcoin. If you guys want to continue seeing any more of these coins, make sure to drop a like, comment, subscribe. I'll see you on the next one.